Hello everyone, I'm Afaf Kanja and welcome to South News. Today we're talking about the upcoming United Nations Conference on Least Developed Countries, and joining us to discuss issues surrounding that conference is the permanent representative of Bangladesh to the United Nations, Ambassador Abdul Momen. Always a distinct pleasure to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. The LDC conference is only about a week or so away from here, running from May 9th through the 13th, where 192 member states will be convening in Istanbul, Turkey, for the most important development conference of the year. There are, it's my understanding, 48 LDCs in the world, Bangladesh among them. Tell us what are the key concerns and needs of least developed countries and why they haven't been met yet.
You see, this is the fourth LDC summit. We had our last LDC summit was in 2001 in Brussels. Now, the question that you asked, there would be 48 LDCs and many development partners and other emerging countries. If not all 192, but they would be very large. This is the largest and most important conference for the LDCs in this decade. We had the last one, 2001. Now, what is LDC? LDCs are those countries. They are relatively poor country. In 1971, there are only 25 LDCs. Over the last 40 years, actually one graduated. One is in the process of graduating and another opted out of LDC. What are the LDCs? They are low-income countries, the poor countries. They depend mostly on one or two or few commodities for exports. The infrastructure is very poor and primitive, and they are finding difficulty to pull themselves up all those bottlenecks. Over the last 40 years, the development partners is trying to help them out, but as it appears, those prescriptions and the promises are not coming, are not working very well. So this year we want, this is the fourth LDC summit, we want a big push. We don't want business as usual. So for us, this is a very important conference. And the reason it is not working because the instruments that we have over the years developed for the LDCs, in many cases they are not working because there are always too many constraints and bottlenecks.
Ambassador, we're hearing on that note of developing partners that there's constraints on donors, and especially when it comes to the current economic situation, the basically just natural disasters occurring in our world. So how will that affect negotiations during the LDC conference?
It is affecting very badly because the donors are saying, the traditional development partners saying, the scenario of the global economy has changed. They have their financial meltdown, worse in last 70 years, and they have a lot of job loss. Under this situation, they are not willing or able to meet their own commitments that they made in many forums, even in 2001. Not to speak of providing additional funds. What LDC wants in that context? LDC wants to graduate. As per General Assembly resolution, they want half of the LDCs to graduate. Currently we are 48. On July 9th, when the South Sudan would be a new country, there would be 49 LDCs. How to graduate? For graduate, they need to increase their per capita income. They need to increase their productive capacities. They need to increase their exports. Currently, LDCs share in the global trade is only 1%. 40 years ago, we had same. There are only 25 countries, around 400 million people, but their share was only 1%. Now, after 40 years, there are 890 million people lives in LDCs, and their share is still 1%. We need access to market. Now, the development partners are not coming forward with this. They are not opening up, not only development, even the emerging countries, they are not coming up with opening their economy. We want 100% quota-free, duty-free access to the global market. Because one way the LDCs can move upward is if they have free trade. They can sell their products. This is one. Another one, of course, they need investment, a lot of investment. And there we need not only overseas development assistance, we also need, aid for investment. And this is the one where the problem that are being created in the development partner countries, like USA, for example. There you have a job loss. You want more investment. To create job, you need more investment. We are arguing to them that we have a simple solution. In the LDCs, because they are poor, they are primitive, many companies of the developed countries, they don't go and invest there. So you have to provide them an incentive so that they go there. Once they go there, they can make their, I give an example. When in Bangladesh, my country, you see, when the Japanese and the South Korean companies cannot export their products, garment and apparel, export to USA, they are looking for a developing country. They found out Bangladesh LDC. Our exports, which is the largest, our exports is number one is garment and apparel, and it started by the development partners. So we are arguing that if the development partners provide incentives to their own companies so that they invest, they don't want to go there. So initial cost, feasibility studies, the development partners can provide to their own company, not us. And if they do, then their company will go there. In the process, they will create jobs for themselves at home country, as well as they will create jobs in the host country. So this is simple.
So then, let me ask you, how did the Cape Verde recently graduated, the Maldives has more recently graduated. So how are they doing it?
You see, these two, look at Maldives. It's a small island country, 300,000 people.
Right.
And so it is not as big problem in that way. But they're graduating and they have been, they're doing all right.
But one can argue because they're so small that they don't really have the resources, right?
No, they're small because Maldives has a lot of, these tourism and others income, the fisheries income. So, and total population itself is so little, so they can make it. But countries like Bangladesh, where we have 160 million people, it's not an easy job. We are doing pretty well. You see, in many areas we are doing pretty well. But we need a big push to get out of this LDC, situation. And there we need ODA assistance. We need a commitment about this flow of ODA. We need a commitment about access to trade, free access to trade. This is most important to us. We need aid for investment. We don't want dole. We want you help yourself, and we get our help.
So you're not talking about aid us. You're not talking about just come here and help us. You're talking about let's work together, trade. Let's be development partners. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm saying. Look, one example. Let's say is a technology transfer. Technology is the engine of growth nowadays. The technology is mostly run by the private companies in USA and all the developed countries. They will not go to Bangladesh just for business' sake, because they might think these poor people, they may not give much business. But if the development partners provide them some incentive to go there, and once they go, they can reap benefits. I give one example. In Bangladesh, it's a poor country. People have very low income. So the telephone companies were not interested to go. But once the mobile company went there, they found it's a big market. Now we have around 60 million subscribers to cell phone. And these companies, the multinationals, are making millions out of that. So even the poorer countries have a scope, and that scope they don't get it right away unless there is a push by the development partners themselves.
So let me ask you then, the G20, members of the G20 are saying that emerging economies, emerging countries should do more to help LDCs. What is your take on that?
Yes, I agree with them. You see, emerging countries, who are they? Let's say China, India, Brazil, South Korea, Africa, they are emerging countries. We have a lot of trade and relationship with them. They should do more. And they are coming up with their own packages. India has come up with one package. They will provide, they have made the announcement that they will provide $500 million only for the least developed countries as a project fund. They have coming up. We want more from them. We also want from them, freer access to our trade. We also want. You see, nowadays we are in a bad shape. The development partners, the traditional development partners, they are saying these emerging countries have a bigger economy. They are big and they are going. And so they should come. The emerging countries are saying, look, we are doing well, but we have still millions of people poor. Let's say India, they are doing pretty good, but around 200 million of them are below the poverty level. So that we can help the least developed countries under South-South solidarity. But we cannot be as such development partners. Development partners say, no, you should be development partners. Now they are in a debate. In that debate, we have become football, a soccer ball. And one guy is pushing us, another guy is pushing us, and we are losing our time.
And meanwhile, people are starving and suffering.
People are starving. You see, in the developing countries, 880 million people, in the least developed countries, more than 60% of them live below poverty level. There is a moral, you see, obligation for the global community to help. I give one example. You see, you talked about the financial meltdown. They don't have money. Money, it is a question of priority. Look, I read in the CIPRI report, last year the global community spent $1.5 trillion for defense. You see, we are not asking that large amount. It is a question of priority. If your priority is right, if you want to help the global community, give them hope and increase the global security also, you need to help the LDCs.
So then I have to ask you this, when it comes to development of countries, if LDCs at this upcoming LDC conference, LDC4, do not receive the trade attention that they need for more resources and open markets, what will happen to the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals?
It will not achieve unless we get adequate resources. Unless we get the openness of the global market, it will be difficult for the developing countries to achieve the MDG goals. Now, we want to achieve the MDG goals, but we look beyond to MDG goals. And unless adequate resources are not there, if you remember, in the last MDG summit, all the leaders, heads of the government, one thing was very clear, that the development partners, the developing countries, they can achieve the goals, provided there is a guarantee of predictable financing and adequate resources. Unless that, it will be difficult. Many countries are falling behind.
Absolutely. So I have to ask you, it seems to me that this makes South-South cooperation a more vital tool, because maybe they're already incentivized because they have similar needs and interests. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. This is a great opportunity for South-South countries, and we are already working together. The experiences in South-South, they have gone through the process. And if we get anything from South, it is more cost effective. So there is a great opportunity for South-South countries to cooperate, and we can translate our own experience to another countries. One LDC can experience, or one South countries, whatever achievement they have made, how they have achieved, those could be translated in an LDC. So there is a great scope. But all said and done, one thing is we have to have a global commitment to help millions of poor people. Without that, tall talks will not do anything. And in the coming summit, yes, good news is yesterday, since we are not moving much in our outcome document, last 2 months it did not go much, more than 30% we not achieved yet, 70% is still left. Yesterday we had a meeting with the Undersecretary of the U.S., who will be the head of delegation, Ambassador Dan Steinberg, and he gave us a lot of hopes. He said that many of our demands, they shared our views. We met many peers, many permanent representatives of all important countries individually. They gave they talked about cooperation, and they were very supportive. But unfortunately, those are not being translated in the expert level. Our hope is that, as the people say at the UN, everything happens at the last minute. So we are hopeful that things will come out. Things will happen at the last minute, and we can have a good summit for next 10 years. You see, the LDC Summit 4 would be from 2011 to 2020. And by that time, we hope that half of the countries should graduate, provided correct mechanism. Another issue I forgot to tell you, many of the LDCs, whenever we have a crisis, global crisis, whether it is climate, whether it is food insecurity, fuel price, LDCs are most hard hit. They are most vulnerable. Whether it's an earthquake, you see earthquake in Japan, they can come over. But earthquake in Haiti is a great difficulty. So in those cases, what you need? We are asking that we should create a mechanism so that in those vulnerable situations, these crises can be correctly managed. We are asking another thing. Brussels Program of Action was a great program, but it did not. It is an unfinished agenda because there was no inbuilt system of monitoring and evaluation of the program. We are asking in the current LDC that we need an inbuilt monitoring and evaluation mechanism so that we know whether LDC is on we want to do more. whether we are on doing our job, we are reaching our target. We want our development partners, whether they are reaching their target, so that we can work together for the betterment of the global community.
Absolutely. And on a final note, Ambassador, we all know that it boils down to political will. You mentioned the U.S., you mentioned Japan. Of course, they're still dealing with just the earthquake and, of course, the tsunami and what's happened with their nuclear energy there and radiation. But as you said, it's an issue of priority, right? Budgeting with what a certain country feels is priority for them. I wanted to ask you to voice to our audience, our viewers here at South News, when it comes to political will, what is your call to the international community ahead of LDC4?
I hope and I expect the international community to rise to the occasion. An international community time and again has risen to the occasion. And I want they should look that there is an obligation for the people who are living in good life, that they have an obligation to help their fellow human beings. And if those human beings can uplift themselves, can have a better life, it will be better for everybody. Look at the Marshall Plan. After the war, Europe was devastated. To uplift them, we had a Marshall, big push. And it worked so well. Not only it worked for European Union, for the whole of Europe, it worked for USA even, all the winners. So we want a big push. In the global community, my appeal to them, that rise to the occasion, determine the priority. There has to be a political will. If there is a political commitment, and if we can translate it correctly, then we look forward to a much better world. Thank you.
Good luck. We'll see you there at LDC4.
Thank you.
Thank
we
you
look
so
forward
much for
to that.
joining us. Thank
We'll
you so
be
much.
there.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. The outcome would not only help, as you said, the LDCs, but the world at large.
It will help the
Yes.
world at large.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us here on South News. I'm Afaf Kanja. We'll see you soon.